Hi folks, Steve Gore, Chainsaws for Charity. Today is our third PTSD video. For everyone who's been sharing along and following along and interacting, thank you all so very much. People are coming in from the storm. They are interacting with each other. They're developing new friendships, new audiences for their causes. It's absolutely a wonderful thing, and that is the power of social media. So thank you all so very much for sharing what we're doing. In the first video, we talked about the cost of suicide and how if you do take that route, you are taking your parents with you. In the second video, we talked about the fatigue of it all, how tired we become, which actually is the basis for the suicides. In this video, we're going to move into the actual education side. Now, I want to reiterate, I'm not selling you anything. I'm not selling you a book. I am not asking you to donate. I'm not selling a t-shirt, a sticker, nothing. What I'm selling you is knowledge, and I'm giving it to you for free. The power of social media. Collectively, I think we can all work together. We can drastically bring these numbers down. If you are an organization that is out there spreading awareness and pushing for awareness, that is a fantastic thing. But it is time to implement the education side. So with that being said, the education I share with you is not my own. It's not like I'm some end-all be-all guru here. I was saved by a man named Lucky Louie. He was a Vietnam veteran. Dealt with PTSD for 50 years with his brothers in a very closed and isolated community. The Vietnam veteran community did not come home to all the welcomes and everything that is going on today. With that being said, they work together alone. And these tips and tricks I'm going to share with you, I picked up from Lucky Louie and also traveling with the Vietnam Wall during 2012. These tips and tricks are being shared with you. You're going to have to do what I did, which was take what works for you, implement them, get proactive, and develop your own support system, new friends, real deal. Surround yourself with people that have post-traumatic stress, and that way you're going to be able to make it. So for everyone else, I hope you can see this. In fact, give me just 1 second. Yeah, it looks like we can see what's going on there. I get a lot of people asking me, is PTS the same as post-PTSD? And the answer is yes. A lot of communities and a lot of people that suffer, we don't like the D, the disorder label, the stigma, if you will, or whatever. So they drop that as a business move as far as us trying to garnish understanding and garnish an audience and everything. It was actually a faux pas. This is the most recognized acronym in the world today. By doing this, it made it smaller and it made confusion. So anyway, everything I do will be PTSD to keep it there. Now, post-traumatic stress, most of the people who suffer with post-traumatic stress disorder are from these groups. You have law enforcement, which is, the police force and everything else, but it's also your Department of Corrections. Then you have the military, of course, fire and rescue, the EMTs, the level 1 trauma, and this group down here that a lot of people don't recognize, talk about, and kind of refuse to bring that civilian sector in. But anyway, that's the victim of crime. That's rape, attempted murder, home invasion, and everything else. And most people who are spreading knowledge about PTSD don't realize that if you take every one of these other groups, combine them into one group, the victim of crime is still bigger than all of them collectively. We have 24 million veterans on U.S. soil. Only 1% of that community, or 7%, I'm sorry, of that community is a combat veteran. So, with that being said, if you take combat veteran, PTSD, put it with law enforcement, fire, EMT, and all that, put them together, the victims of crime, the civilian body, still outnumbers them almost 4-to-1. Watch the news, read your newspaper, it's every small town, it's everywhere. But anyway, getting back to what we're doing, PTSD at its core okay, has a great number of symptoms. These are the primary ones that we struggle with the most. There's isolation, which is self-imposed. We choose to cut ourselves off. It's too painful to talk about. It's too hard to try to get our families to explain or to understand what we're trying to explain to them. And then it's socially. Socially, we're all labeled stigmas, if you will. You hear that term all the time. Damaged goods, broken, easily agitated, has a potential for extreme violence, things like that. Now, during the day, we all have visions. At night, we have the nightmares. This one here, nightmares, for the most part, is literally every single night. Now, the vision side, during the day, what it is people talk all the time about intrusive thoughts. And that verbiage in itself, I feel, is wrong. What it is, it's an actual memory. It's not a thought. I guess technically it is, but like I said, it is an actual memory of something that happened. It can be stimulated from anything. A color, a smell, a sound, really anything. A lot of guys that are military, they'll tell you about driving down the road and scanning the litter that's on the sides of the road because of the roadside bombs and things like that. Anyway, visions aren't like a guaranteed everyday thing. Nightmares pretty much are. That is every single night. All of us feel disconnected from our families, from our communities, literally from the world in some aspects. We are all misunderstood, or we feel we're misunderstood because we cannot explain what's going on with post-traumatic stress. We have outbursts of anger. There is guilt. Now, for the law enforcement and the military, you hear the terms of survivor's guilt. They probably carry the worst of it because it's two-pronged, it's double-dipped. Some law enforcement have engaged in firefights where they've lost a partner and have taken the life of a criminal. Most of your military post-traumatic stress have done both. It's the survivor's guilt is they lived while their brother or sister did not, and it's also carrying the weight of taking a human life. So when it comes to guilt, these two groups, them primarily, but they can understand it, they carry the biggest part of that. I do have survivor's guilt, but it's not the act of taking a life. I do regret or have guilt over the fact that I'm alive and someone else isn't. We have a loss of interest, and that's everything from hobbies, favorite foods, loss of interest in wanting to react, parties with our friends, with our families. In the severest cases of post-traumatic stress, which is the suicide levels, loss of interest can be and lead up to and include even the loss of interest in sex. And then we have today's subject being numb, emotionally numb. All of us in these groups have seen the absolute worst of the worst that man has to offer. Now, I want you to understand, I do understand perfectly well what this is. I am not a supporter of post-traumatic stress. I am a sufferer. Today's topic is numb for a reason. There's people out there, and it causes a great deal of separation with wives, family members, and things like that. We have seen the most horrific of horrifics. We have no fear of death. We become detached inside because of these things that we've seen, things we've been a part of, things that have happened. We cannot grieve I guess, like family members and normal people. And I'm saying this to you today because yesterday morning my father died. Been on the phone with my brothers, my nephews, sister-in-laws, whatnot, and everybody's grieving, of course. And I cannot shed a tear for my father. We've had a lot of trouble. We've had a broken relationship for quite a while, butted heads. But at the end of the day, he is still my father. Our numbness, I feel guilty, numbness, guilt, interacting together. I feel guilty because I can't grieve with my brothers. And I can't grieve the way people think you should as a son. And even with the fact we've had our broken relationships and we've had our problems over the years, it doesn't negate the fact that he was my father. We're talking about a man taught me to ride a bike, the zoo, trick-or-treating, and everything else. I just don't feel that inside. Instead, I'm looking at the blessings of it all. My father had a very fast, very aggressive cancer. He was diagnosed October 1st, and he died yesterday morning about 8 a.m. So I'm grateful for that. But anyway, let me try to explain how the symptoms of post-traumatic stress, one symptom can then lead to another and another, and they interact together, which makes post-traumatic stress such a horrific thing. Anyway, now, as I said, my numbness and inability to feel the loss and the grief and express myself the way most people do outside of our community, that numbness will and already has led to me being misunderstood or a misunderstanding. My brothers can't understand why I can't cry. Some of you that are watching this video were thinking, wow, he can't cry for his father. What a cold-hearted son of a bitch. You know, and that plays out very, very often. But with that being said, this misunderstanding, people can't understand the numbness of post-traumatic stress. The numbness has led to the misunderstanding, which will now lead to disconnections. Some of my family members, when it's all over, will disconnect from me, and there'll be a bigger wedge between me and my family because of this and the way we grieve. Some of you on Facebook that are watching this video will sit back and disconnect, unfriend, separate, scoff, or whatever, ridicule, and that will cause another disconnect. So when you put those together, you have the numbness leading to be misunderstood, which then leads to a disconnection, which then reinforces the isolation on the social side. I'll be isolated from some family members, and I will be isolated from some of you on Facebook. I hope that you have taken the time to pay attention to what this is. Unfortunately, I do know what I'm talking about. Unfortunately, this does happen to me also, even though I'm technically a veteran. I am a victim of crime, and that's how I got here. With that being said, for our military community out there and our brothers and sisters in arms and families that support, I'd like you all to raise a glass tonight to Mr. Richard L. Gore, United States Navy, boatswain's mate coxswain, served in the 60s, and he was aboard the USS Mulligan. Ship was decommissioned years ago and is now a reef off the coast of Florida. Thank you all so very much for what you're doing to help me help them. God bless.